Wake up, everybody, no more sleeping in bed. No more backwards thinking, time for thinking ahead. The world has changed so very much from what it used to be. There's so much hatred, let's put it in our minds.
Discuss the truth and the friendly and surrounding like we do at home at the kitchen table. I'm your host, Dr. Tino Smith. I will lead compelling and relatable and honest conversation. My guests will range from community leaders, professionals, and real people whose stories will touch and inspire you. Discussion will center around relationships, real stories of personal struggles, and amazing triumphant and compelling topics in the news. If you would like to be a guest at the kitchen table, you may call us at 269-962-5553, or you may email us at kingdombuildersworldwide2@gmail.com. Before I introduce my guests to you, both doctors, Michael and Letitia Glass, I'd like to thank my producers, Carl English, Mike Campbell, my wife, Facebook Live, camera, and now in the production room, Tiffany Smith, and my coordinator, Kara Bolden, and also camera, Callie Williams, my co-host, Deacon Doug Jones. My vision is to catalyze, energize, and bring people together. I want to share things that's extremely essential. If we're going to be successful, a lot of this has to do with business opportunities. If we're wise, we know that we go nowhere ignorant of ourselves. There be no network unless we know who we are, who's in the network, so we may have power. It's time to reawaken African people. I intend to help us take our place in the world alongside with all the others. That's my job. What they do in Africa, they talk at the kitchen table or at night, and they share their stories. Well, today, we're gonna do that. It's storytelling time at the kitchen table, and today I'm gonna introduce to you no stranger in the community. I think they're awesome, dynamic, unique, power couple. Let's introduce the Dr. Glass at the kitchen table. Yes, sir. Well, first of all, I'd just like to introduce you both, and then I've had a chance to look at your resume, plethora of information, but the first thing I like to say is I am just Doug. I'm just, first of all, just totally excited when we talk about building, we talk about, just doing it hard and accomplishing something. And today we have two, I don't want to say young people, but two great people that have did those things by becoming profession in a profession, and that's why I'm excited today. I know we're live, but that noise is in the background, y'all, and but we'll just keep going and we'll continue to talk about that. Okay, Dr. Glass, since y'all both doctors, you got Michael and you got Letitia, why don't the wife go first? Just tell me something brief about you, and then let your husband say something brief about him, and then we'll go forward.
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you for inviting us on. It is my honor to be here on today. I am Dr. Letitia Glass. I am originally from Detroit, Michigan. I've been in Battle Creek for about 14 years now, and I practice dentistry alongside my wonderful husband, Dr. Michael Glass.
Dr. Michael Glass. I am born and raised in Battle Creek, came back after graduating from U of M. We've been in our practice since 2004, and yes, like she said, we work together.
Well, we're going to talk about a few things because we actually have, I'm talking to professionals, and that makes me feel really good. But I want to say we're going to deal with some dental issues that only he can talk about, she can talk about. And then we're going to talk about just empowering our community, and then some of the personal things they like to do and things they're doing, just because of who they are. When it comes to healthcare, sometimes the dentist may be the last person you think about. You got heart problems, you go to the doctor, and you find you someone that deals with cancer issues and things of that nature. But sometimes we don't really see the power and the significance of the hygiene and the dental part. And so both doctors, and y'all can tag team like you do in the pulpit, just, y'all know how to do that. Y'all know who got the best answer, so I'm gonna let y'all be in charge. But talk briefly about, how the healthcare on the dental side is just like really, really important for all people, and then at some times talk about the African American community.
I would just say that a lot of times we don't realize that most of the things that come from the outside of our body into the inside of our body starts with your mouth. And because of that, we actually can see a lot of medically related things through the mouth. We have plenty of patients who come into our office and we're referring them to the ear, nose, and throat specialist or to a sleep doctor because we notice that they may have an enlarged tongue or enlarged tonsils. A lot of times a patient may have inflammation in their mouth with swelling tissues, and we can see if the blood pressure or diabetes is under control. So there are a lot of other things that can be identified just from looking at someone's mouth, but I don't know if you're like me, I like to eat, so I can't really imagine not having no teeth.
That's a good way to put it. That's a good way to put it. Lady Doctor, you
good? For me, and I think for both of us, it's just all about education. I think for the most part, people are unaware that their mouth is not a separate entity from the rest of their body. And at Glass Family Dental, we just take great pride in taking the time to actually sit down and educate our patients on the total body care.
Well, when I was told that I was honored to have you both come on the show, of course, I'm going to do a little bit of research on it. And I was reading where it says lack of oral care has an effect on heart disease and diabetes. Now, we don't have data on diabetes in the black community or the white community, but let's just say we suffer in the black community. How can you take that back to not ever having a dentist? Maybe just how can you connect the two? Because we see diabetes issues in our community quite often, and we also have heart disease. And then they're saying lack of oral care has attached to that.
Well, I think you start off understanding, like, if a person has a cold and they cough, they cover their mouth, but if they tried to shake your hand after that, you'd say, hey, wash your hands. So we understand that bacteria has the ability to spread. But those bacteria that develop in the mouth, a lot of times if you're eating, you're drinking, you're swallowing, all of those bacteria are going into your system. So they're finding a lot of the bacteria that cause problems in the heart are isolated sometimes into the mouth as well. When we see a patient, and let's just say you're coming in for regular cleanings, and we start to see your bone loss progression starting to increase, we can say, you're starting to get more bone loss than you used to get, so there may be some other things going on. We'll take the blood pressure. We'll ask them when's the last time they've been evaluated for their blood sugar, because a lot of times you'll have a person who has diabetes, and they identify how good they're doing by how good they feel. And they say, hey, I don't feel bad, and their blood sugar may be sky high. And when that happens, we see more inflammation, we see more bone loss, we see more gum disease in patients who have uncontrolled diabetes. So as long as we're able to monitor the progression of how things are going month to month, it gives us a better idea of the stability of the overall body.
Now what we're going to do, let's go a little to another direction, which is what this show is all about. So, Dr. Glass, I went to school with his aunt, and I actually performed the ceremony because his aunt married my cousin, Brian. So, I got a little history on the family. Doc, you tell me, and then of course the wife tell me, a lot of young people don't make it. You know, they go to school, some make it out of high school, some don't. Some get to college, some don't. And they got all these excuses. But you did it. And you from Battle Creek, and it's not like you had everything perfect, but you did it. Your wife did it in Detroit. Let's hear this side of the story, because we always talk about, well, you know, it's hard, and I know it's no doubt it's hard, but let's listen to not just one, but two individuals that have gone to medical school. They had to first go to undergrad, which is 4 years. Then you had to go to medical school, right?
Correct.
Additional what, 3?
4.
4. Okay. So they did it. They put some things aside. Talk to us about that, because I want young people to see, hey, you know what? Delayed gratification, there's a price to pay, but look at you now. You're open. Talk about that.
Well, for me, I think it was very important having a support system. As far as family, friends, peers that supported you, believed in you. And I'm just grateful to God that I did have that in my parents and my siblings and extended family and friends. So I think most importantly, get people around you that are about you, that care about you, that support you, that want to see you succeed. I think without that, it would have been nearly impossible for me to be where I am. That was definitely very important foundation for me to have moving forward. Secondly, I would just say perseverance. You really have, it has to be what you want, and you just have to purpose in your heart that this is what you want, and you're going to go after it and get it, and nothing's going to stop you from doing it. I definitely had setbacks. I had disappointments. I had obstacles along the way. I got discouraged here and there, but it was what I wanted. I knew what I wanted, and I went after it. So you just have to be willing to persevere through the hard times, the tough times, the difficult times. And going back to what I said initially, it would have been hard for me to do that if I didn't have the correct support system in place.
Before your husband speak, Detroit, were you in the Detroit area, in the suburb Detroit area? Where were you in Detroit?
No, I was in the Detroit area, west side of Detroit.
West side Detroit.
Yes.
And was there a dentist person in your family? Mom, dad, great-granddaddy? What made you want to become a dentist?
Well, for me, you know, the funny thing is I always hated going to the dentist.
Okay.
I was like most of our patients. I had a fear of going to the dentist, but I eventually had a very good experience with my dentist. It was my orthodontist. I was very shy. I was very uncomfortable about my smile and how I looked. And once I actually finished being treated with my braces, I had a newfound confidence in myself. And after that experience, it made me want to be able to give that to somebody else. Okay. So that's what kind of launched me in that direction of dentistry.
So one more thing before we go to the husband. We had a lady come on the show. She's over the gyms. She's got a group, and they mentioned your name. You're one of the gyms. Am I saying it right?
I am. Yes.
Right? So how do you motivate? You know, I go up to school all the time to try to help out. There's a lot of, you know, we spend time, our young men, but there's a lot of young ladies just having some challenges. Mm-hmm. And how do Dr. Glass help them? Because when they look at you, maybe they see you so far, I could never be her. How do you come down and say, yes, you can?
First of all, I would just say leading by example. You have to pretty much practice what you preach. I can't say one thing and do another. So I have to be mindful that because of my position, my title, that a lot of times all eyes are going to be on me. So I have a reputation to uphold. I have to live up to those expectations, so to say. Also, I feel like I'm very willing and I'm open. So if anyone ever comes to me, I'm here. I'm not unapproachable. I am not above anyone else. I'm here to help. I'm willing to help. So I have a heart that is just willing to give to other people. I love to see other people succeed at their goals, their dreams, and I'm just willing to give back in whatever way possible.
Okay. So, DJ, when we think about glass, when we think about the glass, I think about track stars. I think about football stars. They all can run fast. I had a lot of peers and older glass. They were just too good. And now I've come in contact with one of the glass, and he's a great dentist. So that's how I'm going to start off this conversation. How did you, Mr. Glass, Dr. Glass, go there? How did you leave? Because you got a great reputation of sports, and I don't even know if you played sports back in the day. I can't even remember.
A little bit.
Oh, you play a little bit? Okay, good. Okay. But tell me, how did you do that? What made you go there?
I think that for me, growing up in Battle Creek and having the family that I had, I was able to be exposed to a wide range of lifestyles, and it allowed me to be able to see what I wanted and what I didn't want. And seeing things that I didn't want helped me to realize that it had to be something better. But I just didn't know what was out there. So, the funny thing is I'd love to say that I had this plan in high school and I knew what I was going to do, but really I went to like the on-site campus visit at the high school, and it was Michigan State. They did an on-site acceptance, and I was like, oh yeah, I'm going to MSU. Never filled out the application, never did anything. One of my friends was just like, hey, are you going up to the orientation? I was like, when is it? He told me when it was. I went up there. They were like, we didn't even know you were coming. So my parents had to jump on the road, come up there that day, pay the application fee for me to end up going to college. I would have never probably went at that time if my friend wouldn't have asked me, are you coming to the orientation? But once I got to school and I realized that it was a completely different atmosphere, a completely different world than what I had seen. I mean, I remember one time I went with my wife to Detroit, and I seen African Americans with Lexuses and Mercedes, and I was like, I didn't even know we had cars like that. I thought we had the Regals and the rims, and I thought that's all we did. Like, that's all I seen in my circles. So once my eyes were open, it was like, I gotta go back home and tell everybody that it's not what we thought. So for me, I think it was just that fire of wanting to show somebody something different.
What kind of high school student were you? Academically, okay.
I got good grades. Okay. I think that I was able to separate the academics from fun. I was able to handle my business. I didn't know why I was doing it. I just did it because I've never been a person that settled for less. I didn't want to not get a good grade, regardless if I had a plan or not, or what I was going to do with it. But I mean, honestly, I wasn't like the smartest person in my class. I got like a 17 on the ACT. I think that's what athletes have to get in. Like, it wasn't like I just was blowing everything out the water. I don't think I studied for the ACT either, though. Like I said, I didn't really have a plan. But once I got to college, and I seen something different, I just started focusing. And I realized that, it's funny, but I'll say for me, my mom really, she brought me up teaching me about the Bible and the Word of God, and she showed me that it was two paths. And like, there's a path where everybody is doing this and everybody's doing that, and there's another path. And whenever I came across any decision, I always say, well, which path is that? And I just kept choosing that narrow path.
I've always believed in honoring our ancestors, live or passed away. So you go ahead and give mom the full shout. Give her a name. What's her full name?
Linda Glass.
Linda Glass, we congratulate you for giving your son that path. Awesome. Doug, I'm going a little light because I want to get you in the conversation. You're my co-host. You're my co-host. Okay, we get a comment in a hot second. You're my co-host. Now, you told me you wore the shirt because he's a Michigan, but he said Michigan State.
But
So I'm confused. So I want to know, Michigan State is green, correct?
It's green.
And that's U of M. Now I know if Dougie Walker and Terry Walker and mainly Momo watching, they're gonna have. I love y'all, but he's Michigan State, okay? That's U of M. So what, Doug? Just get you in the conversation.
he also went to Michigan also too, right?
Yes.
Went to Michigan too. He went to both schools. We had that conversation.
Okay.
So his loyalty's kind of split.
Okay, because my daughter was undergrad Purdue, but she graduated was IU, but she's more loyal to her undergrad. Are you afraid to say what you're more loyal to?
You can look at my license plate and see it. There's no confusion.
What is it?
It got a state on the back of it.
Michigan State.
And I took that
do.
license plate with me to U of M.
You did. So now we know where his loyalty lies.
Yeah.
That's okay. That's
you see
okay.
my car, you would've known.
That's quite all right. That's quite all right. You know, it is a
Wait.
blessing being up here with actually 3 doctors.
Yes.
You know, Dr. Glasses and Dr. Smith. But my initials are DRJ, Douglas Randall Jones. So technically, I was born Dr. J.
Yes,
So
sir. Yes, sir.
I just don't carry the title.
Oh, I like
So,
that, Dr. J.
all right.
So we got a comment on who asked it?
Yes, Dwayne Kelly says that's my dentist and my friend. They do such a great job.
All right.
All right.
And Hazel Lemont says great people, great dentists.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you for making those comments. Thank you very much.
I do have another question for you.
Thumbs up to the comments.
Another question. You know, when you guys first started your practice in Battle Creek, of course, you know, you had many dentists around, and I'm sure you had to build up that client base, okay, your patient base. If I was a new patient or a new guy coming in town looking for a dentist, why would I choose? Is it Glass Family Dentistry?
Yes.
Why would I choose Glass Family Dentistry?
Can we answer that?
Sure. Go ahead.
Good question.
You know, I think it's pretty simple. I think that in our community, we're someone who has already demonstrated that we care about people. And I think anywhere that you go, you want someone to look at you and care about your circumstances and care about you, but at the same time use the most modern techniques. So we make sure that we keep up on everything. If you come into our office, it's not going to look like an office from the old days. You're going to always see the newest technology. We're always keeping up. But you're also going to see people who take the time to communicate with you, to educate you. I've had patients who come in and they'll say, you know, I went somewhere and they say we needed this, this, and this, and I'm like, well, why though? And we kind of help you understand what do you need to do to prevent problems as well as what are your options to solve the ones you currently have. So I think us taking that personal time and that personal touch puts us at another level.
I like that answer because I've been to a number of dentists in the past, and it was almost like fast food. You know, you get in, you get out, and it didn't take the time to really explain the things that you need to know. You know, that you were just talking about. So I think that's good.
As I piggyback off of that question, Doug, census are always 10 years. So I was looking at this in 2012. The estimate about 44 million African Americans in the United States, meaning about 14.1 of total American population. You got the 313.9 million blacks, and those who call themselves black only. And then they have that the 4.1 million African Americans, or 13.1 of the total U.S. population, with approximately 7,500 dentists. Black dentists should be doing very well, should be, but frequently they're not. In other words, like back in the day in the church, you always had more women than men, so there's no reason why you couldn't find a date, okay, or even anywhere nowadays. So here, I know Dr. Morris was part of some of your directions, and we give him kudos and great respect to him. And then it's you. How would you help encourage that 9-year-old, that 12-year-old, why this profession? Obviously, we have a lack. And I want to first say thank you for the 2 that made a comment, because they're not liable for what I say on this show. They're totally innocent, okay? However, we do have 2 African American dentists in the city, to my knowledge, maybe 3, I think 2. And I hope that we are supporting them. I had one comment when Dr. Morris first got started. A lot of African Americans did not want another African American to look at his mouth, thinking that you're gonna go and tell somebody about how bad their mouth is. And then that's a sad situation about a community, because we should be beyond that. But to my original question, is it only 2, first of all, or I'm wrong? How many African American dentists do we have besides Morris and you?
Well, the 3 with my wife as well, but there's only 2 offices.
That's what I mean, 2 offices. So how would you tell that 9-year-old, and it doesn't have to come to Battle Creek, go somewhere else, because obviously the numbers are low. This is not a big profession for you all. But what would y'all say to that 9-year-old if we all went together and had a talk with 6th graders, and career day? Why and what would you encourage them to practice doing? Because you said you went to school and you just played. So we may not want to use that idea, but it worked. You had that drive. That's what he had, y'all. He had drive, and you need drive more than anything. But what would you say to that 9th grader, 6th grader, both classes?
Well, we actually do that quite often. We do go into the schools and educate the children about dentistry and making career choices. And the first thing we like to do is try to get to know the children in the classroom, their likes, their dislikes, their goals, their aspirations. And whatever I see that child's strength may be, then that's what I encourage them to build on, because we all have strengths and weaknesses. We never want to point out those flaws or those weak areas, but we want to always build up and encourage those areas that are strong. Another thing that we always like to do is to let them see the fun side of dentistry. There are some things that are interesting, that are fun that we do, so we like to bring in a lot of hands-on things so they can kind of get their hands wet per se and see what we do on a day-to-day basis. Also, a lot of times we get lifestyle questions as far as like, well, what kind of car do you drive? But I don't mind answering those questions, but I also like to make sure that if this is something that you want to do, that your heart is in it. Because in order to be a healthcare professional, you have to truly care about other individuals. So we like I said, we like to point out the positive, build on those areas, let them see the good aspects of dentistry, the things that are fun, some things that they might not even think that a dentist may or may not do. Bring those things to light, and just encourage them that if they want to be a healthcare professional, to look inside themselves and make sure that they have the heart for it.
You mentioned something about the car you drive. I don't know what kind of car you drive, but there's an episode, Martin. I don't know if you remember Martin and Cole.
Yes, Cole.
And they were doing a time talking to the students, and they wanted to know the kind of car. So Martin had to lie and say he was driving a Mercedes or something, and Cole Brown had his little car. But this is the point I want to bring up. One of the reasons poor people stay poor is because we live in a society where the material possessions of wealthy are flaunted to us every single day. You got reality TV and various forms of advertising, and so people have a false image. And you said something very good about just wanting to help people. How do we get our young people to say, because just because you're a dentist doesn't mean you're a billionaire. You're in a profession because you care about people. How can we get that clear to all those that's watching that, hey, you know what? Yeah, of course I'm compensated. I should be. It's biblical. I've earned it. But at the same time, it's more than about where I live and what I drive. It's the service I'm providing. And how do we sell that? Because you got so much out there. It's like, hey, maybe I could be a rock star. Because we need more dentists. We need more doctors. We need more lawyers than rappers. We need more of what you're doing than entertainers. We even need more of you than Dr. J's. I mean, honestly, we do. You will last longer. I don't have to worry about you getting a concussion. I don't have to worry about you, getting hit and never be able to play again. You will be here helping people until the good Lord calls you home. And that's a powerful position to be in. You'll be able to live long enough to see your children's children. And so my question is, and Doug can chime in, it's important, y'all, that we stress education. It's important that we celebrate those that have done that. It's important that we recognize them because they did it. They're not even 50s yet. Y'all 40s, right? Mm-hmm. No? See,
39.
So 39. She hasn't even hit 40 yet, you know? And they're in a lot. Your profession, how long y'all been in the profession?
Since
14 years.
14 years? Mm-hmm. So you started, how old were you when you started?
25.
25. And you were?
24. 24
and 25. They've been real professionals, y'all. Let's do it one more time. And they're still here. So that's what I'm talking about, y'all. And we got to change the mindsets of our young people to tell them Dr. Glass and Dr. Glass is a proof that you can make it. You can make it. So I was talking about that whole mindset about, you know, impressing people with things. If you want to have things, Dr. Glass, tell them you got to work for it. Everything ain't going to come easy without a price to pay. Tell them you got to work for it. Is that true? Don't you got to work for it, Doc?
Absolutely. I believe that anything that you want, you have to be willing to sacrifice for. And I think that for me, when I weighed out the risk and the benefits, it actually was a no-brainer. I remember some of my classmates from high school, when I first was telling them what I wanted to do, they were saying, man, but you got to go to school for 8 years. And it's funny because sometimes I look on Facebook and I'll still see some of my friends talking about their classes that they taken. And I'm like, you was talking about me for taking classes for 8 years and you still talking about school. So, like, if you just set your mind and just get it done, that 8 years is nothing. Like he said, the age of 24 being done and not having to think about tests and schools and actually not having to think about the stress and the struggles of finances. It's like you come into a different place. And I believe that in that place, you have to be willing to care about others. And I think that from being in a position where you can help others, you can actually show others more the advantages of being in this position than anything else.
Coming from Indianapolis and being in bigger cities, and then, you know, after 30 years coming back home, I've had the question to ask, why would you even come back home? There's places like Atlanta that these two professionals could just fly. They can go to places like Chicago and just fly. I mean, they can go anywhere in a major, larger metropolitan area and just do fly. But they chose to stay home or come back home where you have a 50,000 population and maybe 15 or 4% of that is one race. Why stay? First of all, I'm glad you're here, okay? But I need that all these people who's always talking about, I'm leaving Battle Creek is this. Why stay here, Miss Doctor or Mr. Dr. Glass? Why Battle Creek? The cereal city, the place of Tony the Tiger and Doug Jones. Why stay here?
I had to come home.
Okay.
I had to. For me, I think that was part of the drive that actually got me through, is that seeing what, I can't emphasize enough how I felt like it was two different worlds. I cannot emphasize it enough. I feel like when I was in junior high, high school, like the environment, what we seen, what we were exposed to, it just seemed like it was a much smaller reality than what the world really is. And when my eyes were opened and I seen the world from a different perspective, I felt like I had to come back and show people that it's not what we thought it was. I mean, when we were younger, and I mean, it's sad to say it, but when we were younger, we glorified the people who were selling drugs. We glorified the people who had the cars and, you know, all those things. We thought that was so valuable to us. And once I once I graduated from high school and I went to college, and some of my friends that we glorified, they passed away, other ones got locked up, it was like every piece of that happened just put another coal in my fire to make me like, I'm going back. I'm going back and I'm showing them something different, and it was nothing that wasn't going to stop me.
Yeah, definitely. This is exciting. His comment brought this other question up, and it's like he and I had a one-on-one meeting, and I promise we have not had any conversation at all. I will say we do see each other at the gym. Can't y'all both tell? I had to make sure I wore the right sweater because I knew you was going to be here. I hope they got me in the right position. Okay. Anyway, there are at least 4 things that can bring great men down if he does not approach them with moderation. Now, we're not justifying any of this. This is just a factual show. Okay, so I'm not speaking as the bishop of the local church because, there's black and white things that we believe in and don't believe in. But from a community perspective, there are at least 4 things that can bring great men down if he does not approach them with moderation. And I'm going to mention some of these things. And I'm going to have Dr. Glass and even Ms. Glass, Dr. Glass talk about it. Physical intimacy. Too many people, messy situation, STDs, unwanted pregnancies. Those are facts, and they're destroying our community. Okay? Drugs, illegal drugs, opium, all the kind of drugs that we're hearing about every day. Alcohol. Everybody drink, they say. So everyone thinks it's okay. Binge drinking on college campus is starting to become an epidemic. It's horrible. And then gambling. The addiction has put people into such a financial hole that many of them have committed suicide. To both of you all that have maybe been tempted, challenged, y'all been to college, y'all saw the world, how do we come out of that? You said you saw some of your friends. How do we get out of that? How do we get out of that world, clean ourselves up and say, let me go back to school, or not go back to school, but just change? Because part of this kitchen table conversation is we want the everyday person to know they could be a Dr. Glass. They don't have to be a dentist, but they can do something and not get caught up in these challenges, because sometimes these are just the symptoms of a real problem. And I'm going to mention that because I know y'all both are very much in your church. Y'all very active. You have a strong faith of God, and I just love that part about it. But at the end of the day, our friends, our peers, our loved ones are keep going down that road. Doctor, you could have done it. You could have done it. How can we stop? How do we stop? How do we close that door? How do we do it? Outside of being a professional, just how do we help that family member that's struggling?
I think I can answer that question from the aspect of how to avoid those pitfalls. And I would just say we really need to get back to parenting. For me, I guess I probably had strict parents. I didn't feel that way, but that just was not something that I ever thought about getting caught up in. My mom definitely made sure that I was busy 24/7. I had music lessons, I had dance lessons, I had camp. I always had something to do, and if there was some downtime, then me and her cooked together, we watched a movie together. There was something to keep me occupied. So I was not that child that was on the street. I wasn't hanging out with friends. And even as I got older and I became an adult, I didn't go to college and want to party or hang out with my friends. I came home on the weekend to hang out with my mom, like, what we doing, what show we gonna watch, what we cooking for dinner. So I think we really need to get back to parenting our children and teach them how not to even fall into those pitfalls. Teach them how to avoid them. So I think a lot of times we get caught up in wanting to be friends with our children, or not to be too hard on our children, or not wanting to show tough love to our children. But we are to teach our children not to pacify them, not to give them what they want. So my answer for that is just to get back to parenting our children so they can avoid those pitfalls altogether.
Doug, you talked about that the other day. Why don't you jump into that?
I think that's very true. I think it does go back to parenting. I mean, there's so many things out there that kids are exposed to, but it starts at home. You know, they have access to everything. You know, and you asked myself the question the other day. I said, you know, cocaine and other drugs and prescription pills have been around for a long time, but the epidemic now has gone to different levels. Why? Why all of a sudden is there this opioid epidemic? You know, kids are. My daughter was telling me the other day that they mixed this prescription drug with Mountain Dew, and they give it a name, and kids drink this like alcohol. And I'm thinking to myself, what in the world is going on? But a lot of it does go back to parenting. You know, you have to know what your kids are doing. You have to know, you know, at a young age, at a very young age. You got to get them early. If you don't get them early, somebody else is going to influence them. There's peer pressure, there's social pressure, there's all types of pressures out there, and they get curious.
Wow. We had a comment?
Yes, there's a comment from Ira May Steele. She says, education is still important. Encouraging others to get an education. Thanks for sharing your experience and expertise and coming back home to Indy to practice.
Amen. Thank you for that.
Amen.
I wanted to comment on that too, though. I think that you have to understand that the culture of our music and, you know, the things that the younger people glorify try to lead them down that path, unfortunately. Mm-hmm. And there's shows like this, but as a community, the people who are doing positive things, we need to become more visible. We need to be more active in our community. We need to be more social. We need to be able to show people that there is a difference. That, you know, a lot of times in the streets, if all they see is the people who are drinking, the people who are doing the drugs, if that's all they see, then what do you expect? You know, when we go into the schools and we ask kids what do they want to be when they get older, most of them say policemen or firemen because that's what they see. And we need to get to a point where we become more visible so that they can see other things. I did have the opportunity to be able to see Dr. Morris, and that did help me visualize being able to be a doctor or be a dentist. So I agree that shows like this, but we do need to become more visible.
Absolutely. You know, so with what all four of us are saying, with this whole physical intimacy and the drugs and the alcohol and the gambling, be mindful of these things. If you are a young person, and also be mindful of these habits in your loved ones. Mm-hmm. You know, business partners, your romantic partner. If a person won't change, make your adjustments, because their sloppy decisions spill over unto you. I'm looking at a power couple here, okay? I'm looking at two, I mean, think about it, they married, y'all. They talking about what, teeth? I mean, what y'all talking about? I mean, we got something in common here. I mean, they really got something in common. They got their own profession. They're both doctors. Wow. You know, talk about what do y'all do when it's just chill mode, relax? Then I got a question here. Chill mode, relax. I mean, just, you know, just nobody's around. What do y'all do?
We don't talk about teeth.
Okay, that's what you don't do. Okay.
You know, I think the best thing that we do is that we try and bring the best out of each other. You know, when I think about our relationship, I don't really focus on myself because I know that she got me covered. I focus on her. Good. So as we focus on each other and trying to bring the best out of each other, we just keep moving to other levels. So I guess I would just say we spend a lot of time focusing on our children. You know, I think a lot of times when we think about things and when we have spare time, we're trying to figure out what to do for them, how to guide them, what are their weaknesses, what do we need to focus on to help them become stronger. And, you know, we're just trying to build a legacy.
Give us the name of your children. Tell us about your children. Who are the
We have Michael Jr.
Michael Jr.
11. He'll be 12 soon. We have Malik, who is 9.
Malik, all right.
Well, actually, he's 10. And we have Joseph, who is 6. So we have 3 boys, and pretty much that is our life.
So I got a quick question. So are you each other's dentist? So it's like Mike's like, hey babe, I need you to check something out. So do you like? Is that how it works?
Yeah.
Okay, you got your own little dentist office at home.
I gotta keep rehiring her because she'll like start working on me and she'll be like, "You're getting on my nerves." And she'll walk away. I'm like, "You better come finish."
That's good.
So we're not trying to make anybody rich, but I'm just curious because y'all ain't gonna give us. We should get credit for whatever he's about to say. But what kind of toothpaste you use? I just want to know. And whatever name he said, if anybody start buying that product, we want a percentage. What kind of toothpaste do you use?
Well, I use the black toothpaste. The black charcoal toothpaste. That's what I use.
It's called black charcoal?
It's called black toothpaste.
Okay, I need to get educated because I hate when I don't know something. And today, I don't know this. It's called black charcoal?
It's called black
By
toothpaste.
black people or just
That was my question.
I
never heard of it.
They got black products. Is the car for black people?
No, it's not.
It's not like food. Like food.
No.
Where do they sell it? Where can
It's
you buy
like
it?
a charcoal-based toothpaste.
Where you buy that?
Well, we actually have a distributor that sends it to our office and we distribute it out. But I use it because, charcoal is often used if a person has ingested poison. So if a person has ingested poison, a lot of times they'll use a charcoal base to help get that toxin out of their body. So the same concept works in the mouth. You can use a black toothpaste, and as that black toothpaste is in your mouth, it can help to absorb those toxins that typically are in our mouths. You'll see people's teeth get whiter, not because they're bleaching, but because they're removing the toxins that are just layers on their teeth.
Do you use it first, doctor?
I use
Well, let me
it
ask you, what
sometimes.
kind you use first, doctor?
Typically, I just use Colgate.
Colgate. Okay. So hold on. So how much is this black charcoal? Whatever. How much does it, if we came to your store, your shop, how much would it cost us?
What is it, 30? I think it's $30.
So what?
Is the tube this big?
It's funny because I started using mine in February and I think I just used it up. You don't have to use much and it goes a long ways. And it's funny because I'll have patients who deal with a lot of staining. And sometimes they'll want to get their teeth cleaned more than every 6 months because of how much staining they have on their teeth. Maybe their coffee, maybe it's tea, whatever it is. But I've gotten them to the point where no, you don't have to come in so often. Let's just use this toothpaste. And honestly, it's taking away that stain.
So the distributor don't sell in smaller tubes? Because what I was going to do until you said $30, and then I got the revelation not to do it. I was going to have a few people come to your place of business, mention the talk show, and as a complimentary gift on our end, we was going to support it. But $30, you're not getting it. If you can somehow get a little tube, because I think I want to try the black. I like anything that starts off with black. Okay, Michael Bolden. Go ahead, Michael. You got a question.
Well, this is in reference to you guys talk about the education part, and and this is nothing on my mom or anything like that. It's just that at the time that I was growing up, some parents will mention to their kids about education, about college and everything. And like I said, it's nothing on my mother. It's just about, whatever she was in at that time. I never ever heard when I was in elementary or junior high, or for that matter, too much high school, son, college. What do you do? What do you say to the parents that need to speak that to their kids, so that it will be in their head that this is something that they need to do, educate themselves and go further than the 12th grade if they must?
I think you just need to stress education from the beginning. Neither one of my parents were college educated, so when it came time to sending their children to college, they had no idea what to do. They just knew that people said that you should go to college after high school. But what was important when we were growing up was just education, period. I know when I was growing up, my parents didn't let me have a job outside of the house because they told me that my job was to get an education. Now, if I failed at that job and I brought home D's and F's, then there would be a problem. But my job was to be a good student. And pretty much everything was structured around myself and my brother succeeding in school. So I think that education just needs to be stressed from day one. And we try to do that with our own kids. Like, if whatever they do well in school, we reward every step. Every good progress, nothing is ever ignored. So even if you're a parent that does not know much about college, you don't have a college education yourself, that does not mean that you can't put the importance of education in your own children.
You know, our time is kind of winding up, but I do want to have some closing remarks. So what I'm hearing is you had your parents in the house with you, and you had mom and dad in the house with you. So we did have that at this table, and that is obviously still important. But if we don't have that, we still want to encourage that the parents work together and cohabit to try to make sure those children can get their fair opportunity in this place we call the game of life. But in closing, First Lady Doctor, anything you want to just say to the audience before we close, and then of course you, Doctor, and then the co-host, and then we're going to do our closing remarks. But anything you just want to say to the people? Facebook Live has been watching you, and also we'll be on the show on Saturdays and Sundays. But give us a closing remarks.
Well, you know, I've definitely enjoyed my time being here. Again, thank you for inviting myself and my husband. Just to those that are listening, I would just say to the young people that are listening, if you have goals, if you have aspirations, don't let anything stop you from getting there. If you're a parent, make sure you support your child in any way possible. It could be just a good job, a pat on the back, a hot meal for the day, but it is important as parents for our children to know that we support them, that we have their back no matter what. So I think if there's nothing else that was taken away from this conversation, is that as a parent, make sure that you are the support system for your child.
You know, I would just say that when I was in dental school, there were people who were once firemen. There was someone in my class when I was in my 20s, they were in their 40s. It's never too late. A lot of times we think that we've missed our opportunity, or that, you know, we can't go back and fix something, or that we can't move forward. And I think that every day can be used to be propelled to the next level. Don't ever think that it's too late. Don't ever think that you've messed up and now you just have to deal with the punishment. Make today that first day that takes you to that next level.
Wow.
You know, years ago when you, I believe it was when you first started your practice, I think I came in and gave you a visit. I was looking for a new dentist. You probably don't remember. That was a long time ago. And I actually ended up going with a guy named Dr. Yunke. He was a friend of my dad's, and he had a practice on North Avenue. And then he ended up moving with another dentist in Union City, and that's who I see now at this point. You know, I'm kind of a loyal guy. So in the wintertime, it's kind of it's a 15-minute drive. You know, sometimes it's kind of bad if the roads are bad, but it's not that big of a deal because I don't go that often, 3 or 4 times a year maybe. But when I make my way back into Battle Creek, I'm gonna be looking for another dentist. Now I went to school with John. So, you know, Dr. John Morris. I mean, we played basketball together in high school. You know, that's my boy. We see each other at the gym. So I'm gonna be kind of torn between Dr. Glass, Dr. John. I'm leaning toward Dr. John, but I'm gonna support the black dentists in Battle Creek. But I think you guys are positive role models, and it's, I think we're happy and we're glad and we're fortunate to have you here in Battle Creek. So,
you know, as a community, We need more participation from black people as patients. I feel that I don't sound the alarm in an effort to awaken our people to this fact. They will falsely assume that black dentists are wealthy simply by virtue of the title doctor, whether it's Dr. Morris or the Dr. Glass. We want to support them. We want to target the clientele to patronize these three individuals. Why? Because you know what? It's a long time coming, and the change has come. I always close by giving honor to my ancestors. My grandfather, my mother's side, is Leo Dale Perry Sr. My grandmother, his wife, is Ruby Elizabeth Perry. They are the parents of my wonderful mother, Mother Georgia Lee Howard Perry. And then on my father's side is Edward West Smith, where I got my middle name from, Gussie Smith. They're the parents of my late great father, Hugh Smith. If you're gonna network, that's where your power is gonna come. One thing you're supposed to have as a people, if you're going to network with power, everybody's supposed to have a map, and everybody need to have a globe, so you know where you're going. The children of Issachar understood the time. Today, we learned a whole lot. You can be raised in Battle Creek or in the inner city of Detroit, Michigan, and still become great doctors, contributors to society. I salute these two. I respect these two. I will support these two. Let's have prayer, all four of us. Father, we honor you today for this time. We're just honored for these great people, people of God, people of destiny, promise. They're anointed. Give their business favor. Allow this broadcast to cause people to call them up and say, hey, I heard you on this show. I want to come and patronize you. Bless their children. Bless their parents for being great parents. Inspiration. Thank you for Dr. Glass and Dr. Glass. This is our prayer in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
All right. So very long before that judgment day. Won't you make them happy before they pass away? Wake up all the builders, time to build a new land. I know we can do it if we all lend a hand. The only thing we have to do is put it in our minds. Sure things will work out, they do it every time.
AccessVision, your voice, your community.